that whole process was me learning, especially like when I went to go start, I was like, can you please just come down and like help me start? Because like I'm scared. I was like, that drawing the line out of in your comfort zone and stepping out of it. I stepped out of it, but I was just like, I don't know. I need help. He came down and we hung out and we painted, for the first like weekend or whatever. And he got me started because, once it started, you have to finish it. So, um, and he was really great. So I'm used to painting smaller pieces, right? And I think a lot of artists, when you start, it seems less intimidating and it seems easier to paint smaller. So you have like your tiny little canvas and your tiny little brush, and it's not intimidating at all. And you're like, oh, it's small, whatever. And so as I was painting, the wall, he would come up behind me and grab like a brush that truly was too small for the piece, because like, 12 feet tall and I have a half-inch brush or something. And would come up behind me and grab the brush out of my hand and replace it with either a roller or a much bigger paintbrush. And I was like, what? And I would be like, what are you doing to me? And he's like, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. You're going to use this. And I'd be like, okay, like dragging and kicking me out of my comfort zone, even though I was like, please do it. Um, so that was all a learning process in general.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creativity Worth Expressing. I'm your host, Ryan Anthony Hernandez, and today our special guest is TinyNightmare. TinyNightmare, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. I'm really stoked to talk to you. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you
And
again.
I'm excited to have this interview and to dive into your creative universe.
Yeah, let's go. It's weird.
To get started, could you introduce yourself as well as our creative expression to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm TinyNightmare. I'm an artist out of Southern California. I am a multimedia artist in that I do painting, I do immersive space design. I have also done like dabbled in filmmaking and put out a documentary. I've done like digital design and murals. So just basically any way that I can tell stories that are important to me. Whatever that tool or avenue looks like. I like to call myself a creative junkie. Um, I'll just use whatever tools I need to tell that story and like get it out. So yeah, it's multimedia artist basically.
What sparked your love for creativity from the very beginning?
I don't know that there was ever like a spark that happened per se. It more has been like a demon inside of me scratching to get out my whole life. It's just always kind of been there. And then even like throughout the years where I've done more business oriented things with my life, or I've done, different avenues where I kind of put my creativity to the side. I mean, it's always been there and obviously has influenced me in every way. But even then, I realized that I needed to have my own personal outlet to fuel creativity for like projects or clients or whatever that was. And yeah, I mean, I've been painting and drawing since I was like little. So like, and I mean like 2, 3 years old. So my mom just always, she liked to have, arts and crafts and drawing and painting all around the house since I was a little kid. So it's just always been something that I did. And then the adults around me always kind of recognized it and tried to foster it, even when I tried to rebel against it myself. And then as I got older, I just realized you can't fight some things. So it's just always something that's been there, and whether I want it to be or not. So that's where that is.
So I find it interesting that you're saying that, you can't fight it, that it's in you. When was the moment, or what was the project that you worked on that you said to yourself, I'm not fighting it anymore. This is my artwork. This is my project. Is there a moment?
Yeah, I guess So I guess like when I would make kind of my own work for me, I still didn't even see it as like my projects or whatever. It was always more so because I've always been so I'm like a writer kind of first and foremost. Um, and then there's just some things that you can't write that you can't put words to. And so that's kind of where art always came in helpful for me. And so I always did it as a way of kind of therapy for myself. And then people would be like, "Oh, how much is that painting? I want to buy it." I was like, "Why? Like, why do you want to buy my emotions? Like, that's so weird to me." Um, and then like, recently, a couple years ago, I had a bar and it started out as a creative project for a client that I was a creative director of, called Amplified Works. And we had this like I don't want to say undesirable location because it in theory should be a desirable location in downtown San Diego, but downtown San Diego is really hard to make work. But we had a basement and I grew up in the East Coast, and I've been on tour a lot with bands and musicians, and the best shows and the best clubs are always in basements. And the layout and the design of this building was awful. It was very awkward, very poorly designed and laid out. And so there was a basement with just this really random like room. Like it's, 45, what was it? It's 40 feet, 5 feet long and 12 feet across. And so it's great for storage, but we didn't really need to store a whole lot because we were a restaurant and a brewery and we had a couple other locations. So it was just kind of there. And I was like, you know, we need to make this into like an underground bar. So, um, and this was like still technically the idea, like the name, it was called Acid Vault. And we named it after Bacillus acidophilus, which is a souring agent for beer, for like sour beer, or one of them at least. And so we called it the Acid Vault because the owner's original idea was he wanted to just sell like our like sour beers down there. And I looked at it and I thought this needs to be a speakeasy. I was like, I'm just gonna build it as a really cool speakeasy and then make it be like his idea. Like, you plant the seeds in people so they think it's their idea and you're like, that's genius. And so I did that and I like built trees. So I should actually probably say that I worked on this right after my mom passed away and I just like needed an outlet for all the energy. I've had a lot of people pass away in my life, and I realized that when somebody dies or you lose something and you're going through grief, you have a lot of energy, right? And it takes a lot of energy to just be sad. Like it is so like energy draining to just grieve. And laying in bed can be exhausting. And I was like, you have so much energy, like energy is finite, right? So you have like so much energy and you can shape it and put it into any like form or color you want. That's how I think of it. And so I was like, I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to build something positive out of it. I'm going to like do something productive with this energy. And I did, and I spent like, 14-hour days slept in there. Like I just used that energy to be the most vast creative I have ever been. Um, and I was just like, whatever happens, happens in here. And it's gonna be however it wanted because like I said, I always used art as kind of my therapy. So I had this whole very dark room to do whatever I wanted, really. Because I had originally drawn it out and I was like, cool, we can get someone to build this. And the owner is like, well, you're really creative and artistic. He's like, why don't you do it? I was like, what? I don't fabricate things. I don't like, I can do woodworking a little bit, but he's like, no, I think you should do it. And he's always been like my biggest cheerleader. And we worked together for like 12 years. And he knew me since I was like 22 years old when I started doing social media for his brewery. And then I just like kind of worked my way into like a creative director position. And so he's always pushing me to push the boundaries of my own creativity and limitations. He just like had like endless belief in me, which I don't even have half the time in my own self, or I don't see it, and he does, which has always been like amazingly helpful for me. And I was just like, well, can we hire someone? He's like, no, we have no budget, so you have to do it. I was like, this is bullshit. I was like, I know that there is, but you're just making me do this. But it ended up being amazing because we had started that conversation and then I had to leave to take care of my mom and then she passed away. And then I just had this room to get all of that energy out on. And so I did. And it ended up like figured out how to sculpt trees and like how to like, you know, build limbs and make leaves and how to like do different woodworking I had never done before and all this like crazy and lighting design, which I've kind of oddly fallen in love with because it's so amazing how you can change the energy or perception of something just based on lighting. It's fascinating. I'm sure photographers will be like, yeah, duh, obviously. And I'll be like, well, I just figured this out by, FAFO. And so yeah, it just became basically an immersive space. And I always saw it as I created the background, and then as soon as people came in, they became the subjects of the piece, right? So the quote unquote painting is always changing. The art piece is always changing by who's in there, what are they doing, who's meeting, who's talking, who's laughing, who's crying, all the things. Who's actually coming in there on acid, pretending that they're very sober when they are not very sober. That was always a good one. But yeah, so like I think once it got in a direction of the owner would just come in and check on me and he would look around kind of in a scared way and he would be like, what do you need from the Home Depot or Lowe's? And I was like, do you want to help me? He's like, no, absolutely not. At a point, people just drop off supplies that I asked for and like slowly back away. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is my piece at this point. Yeah, and then I had to recently close down that the bar. I ended up taking over the whole thing. It ended up being really successful. We had a lease renewal coming up, which my investor decided that he just didn't want to have to do that anymore. It was a really big, like I had to make $124,000 in sales a month to break even. So it was a very big goal every month to do.
Yeah.
Um, and, I had people ask me to design their restaurants afterwards, after I closed it and to do different things. But mostly people just came to me and they were like, I just want to buy your artwork. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. And then I just really, really started creating like for myself and just what I want to do, which was like slightly new to me. Like I always kind of have, but it's always been like inspired by, clients, or it's been like my own random tangent that I'm painting in the middle of the night or whatever to just kind of help me process things. But over the past couple years, I've truly just been creating for myself, which has been really fascinating and interesting. And I love that people are into it, which is cool. Like it's no better compliment, right?
Yeah. Something that stands out to me is the energy. You were working for 14 hours, maybe
Oh yeah.
more, getting in there, getting your hands dirty. I bring that up because sometimes people have a lot of energy and maybe not know where to put that energy. Uh, so my question for you is, in life, have there been any perhaps mentors, influential figures, or maybe even life experiences which shaped your artistic perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think life creates your artistic perspective in general, right? So it's like it's everything. It's from childhood, it's from, adventures, traveling, and I've just been lucky enough to travel and move around a lot. I also had a pretty like uh entertaining childhood, I guess you could say. A lot happened. And I think that like a lot of people who go through a lot of trauma also tend to be very creative because you don't really know what to do with that energy or what to do with like your past experiences or those emotions that kind of come out. I've always tried to figure out how to like simulate trauma to like for people who have not had to go through hard things. It's like, how do you like simulate trauma for people, but not actually traumatize them, but to get like the quote unquote benefits that you get out of being traumatized throughout life, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that just living itself is always going to inform people's art. And I think that you have to make a conscious effort to quote unquote live, right? Like you can exist, but it's not always the same as living. Seek adventure, seek something new. We were talking earlier, about how you started this podcast and how, you had some fears around like being on camera or talking. And um, I read this quote years ago. I'm really into quotes. Like it's very much my internal thing. Um, but I read this quote years ago that said, everything is one step outside of your comfort zone. And so whenever I get nervous about something or I get a little uncomfortable or scared or whatever, I actually physically will take my foot and draw a little circle around me. And then I take my foot and step it one outside of my little imaginary line. And I go, okay, we're doing this now. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's just taking the initiative to create adventure in your life, and that will always inform your art and your creativity and where you go next with it.
Is there a certain theme that you like to tackle in your, or not tackle, but that you like to embrace in your art projects?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think that over the years and over like the spectrum of my artwork and how it's progressed over the years that I noticed a theme until recently, within the past like year or two. Like I always just felt like, oh, I'm just creating this picture or whatever, and then I go back and look and I'm like, oh, like it actually. Yeah, so I mean a lot of the themes in my work have to do with um with which is like isolation, loneliness, death. A lot of it is very political. A lot of it is very has to do with like a lot of mental health stuff, truly. Um, I think in a lot of like my work, which I've purposely gotten away from over the past couple years, is I have a character, a girl character that I forever since I was like 14 would just it's the same girl. She wears the same outfit. Like Steve Jobs is like I wear the same outfit. I'm like, cool, so does my character. And everybody would always ask me like, you know, um, who is this person in your painting? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm putting her in this position to like tell the story of like what I guess is going on, even though maybe I don't fully understand the story, right? I'm just painting, and a lot of times I'll paint and then I realize why or what I painted afterwards once I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, and it literally helps me work through things. Um, but yeah, I think I realized that the girl character is kind of like my inner child a little bit. So once I went back and looked at each of the pieces I've made for years, it made so much more sense to me of what I was even creating. It's like honestly, I really don't even know what I'm making half the time. It's truly like my own therapy. But yeah, a lot of it is just with like mental health struggles that, either we do recognize or don't recognize we're going through. And a lot of it is just social commentary on life itself of like not really getting hung up on like earthly things such as like material wealth or capitalism or any of these other societal structures that we've created as humans that aren't real. Like they're real because we created them, but truly we should just be like making art and eating berries and, just like not creating all this extra stress that we put on ourselves in our world that we created and made so much more complicated than it should. I mean, it's led to a lot of technological advances, but at the end of the day, like how helpful is that really,
Yeah.
Like in the end, our advancements will probably be our own undoing anyways. So how much has it really helped us? And there's a lot of like themes of that also in my work as well. So yeah.
No, it really reflects what you're saying, reflects what you were saying earlier about how life can shape the art that we make. And it really seems like you're very in tune with what's happening around you. And
Yeah,
it,
absolutely. I'm a total political junkie, and I started doing like a YouTube series called Painting and Politics, and I was going through like everything that happened. I was like, I need to do this daily if I'm gonna keep up right now. And then I got death threats, which was really fun. So I paused for a minute, but I'm gonna start it back up since, South Park is taking all the heat now, and it's a little less. I should have less people threatening me, so that'll be nice.
I wanted to go back to this character that you mentioned that's been there
Yeah.
since 14. Is she a superhero, just a friend, an angel? What is it?
No, she's just a girl with like black hair and bangs, kind of like a Wednesday Addams type character, which makes a lot
Okay.
of sense for me. I think she was kind of born out of my goth era as a little girl. I think they came out about the same time. Yeah, she just wears a black dress and like a little white like collar on her dress, and I just kind of put her in whether she's floating through space or like I have this one like huge painting I've been working on for years. Um, Actually, it's a commission and I've taken years to make it. They're fine though. And it was based on a drawing I did. And it's like her going through these like portals in space and she's like floating. And once I finished it, I was like, oh, that's like going through different phases of life and approaching the next phase of life. Right. So it's like a lot. And then I have a new series that I'm going to be working on where I'm going back to her because what I've tried to do, I realized because I'm a very self-taught artist, I've never really taken an art class, and I say never really because in college I tried to, but then they tried to make me use oil paints and paint a cloud, and I told them to go fuck off, and I was like, I'm not doing this, this is dumb, and which is very indicative of me as a person. I'm like, I don't like this is stupid. Bye. Um, so I
I love it. I love it.
yeah, I was like, no. So that's the extent of my art class I've taken. So, but I've been really fortunate actually to be in and around and know a lot of very famous artists, and I've never told them that I paint or anything. So which is really funny because when I was much younger, like I did, but I like didn't really count it. And I realized I need to work on like my backgrounds and my landscapes, right? It's like technically the first landscape I ever did was the mural in Acid Vault. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's the first landscape I've ever done. It's just like weird. Like my trajectory is like all over the place of just total like fuck around and find out, right? And it's how I approach life, probably. My own personal theory on how to live life. Just figure it out. But yeah, so I realized that I needed to work on backgrounds. So like what I've been doing is kind of working on backgrounds, which ended up just being like very pop surrealist. And I like the piece you mentioned before, um, Craving Topo Chico, which is a forever thing for me. Uh it always ended up being like I always want to boil things down into their simplest parts. I always say I want to paint like Hemingway writes. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. I see a lot of books there, but I don't know how familiar you are with Hemingway and his writing. But I love that um, he simplifies like scenes or even just sentences to their most simplest parts, but you get so much out of it. And I truly like that's kind of how I try to embrace a lot of my paintings over the past few years is I want to boil it down to its simplest parts and I want to make it very visually approachable to people. Like I want to make it look fun and happy. And people are like, oh my God, I love the colors. Like that's like the number one people thing say about my work. It's like, oh my God, I love the colors. But it's like, I'm like, but it's truly like a reflection on like death and dying and how you can't take material well. And it's like very like deep, but I've like just brought it down to its most poignant like elements, right? And so that's what I've been practicing actually and exploring over the past couple years. And my next series, I'm going to bring the girl back and I'm going to have her in these like new realms that I've created, I guess, through these pieces and kind of bring the two styles back together in a very kind of like weird, surrealist, pop surrealist kind of way. So that's kind of like my next endeavor with art and my painting and then outside of that, I want to actually create those realms so that you as a person and not just her as a character can experience them. So I want to like find a desert somewhere and build like these sculptures and like these like stages essentially in the desert in the middle of nowhere.
So your paintings, each one, is it all like one story with this girl?
It can be. Yeah, it's kind of like the new series is definitely going to be like more set up like a comic book, but you won't really get the story unless you go to the gallery to like see it all put together. And then everybody can have their own piece. And then that way, like 300 years from now, when I'm dead, people can try to put the story back together.
So is there like a canon kind of that you have?
I'm creating it. Yeah, I'm kind of
Okay.
putting it together. Now that I've like had time to like look back at my art and figure it out, which, normally people are like, yeah, I have this that I'm saying. I'm like figuring it out by looking at it years later. I'm like, oh, that's what I was doing. So now I'm kind of doing it like intent and purpose of those things now that I'm older and I understand myself more and I understand like my own experiences a little bit more. And now I'm putting it together like with intention, if that makes sense.
See that you're a very inspired person. How do you deal with creative blocks?
I don't have them.
Wow. I love it.
I have the opposite problem of there is not enough time on this planet, and I will probably not be able to live long enough to get all of the things out. Like I said, it's like a demon that scratches inside of me to get out. Like I literally I was speaking with another artist friend of mine, and he's a little like, I don't know, pretentious, I guess. Because he was talking about this and I was like, oh yeah, I don't really experience that. And yeah, I was just like, I don't really experience that. It's like very weird. Actually, I have kind of like the opposite problem where I need to get all of it out. Like I hope one day I get it all out and I can just find peace. Like if that makes sense. And he was like, oh, it's probably just because you take longer to make pieces than I do. I was like, no, it's not. And I was like, it's literally, I could just, if I could figure out a way to stay awake and just create all the time, maybe I might get to the end of it, but I don't think so. And I would probably have to stay locked in a room and never go outside to have no more experiences that would more so fuel my creativity. So like I work on like multiple screenplays and scripts at a time, and I'm like 75,000 words into a book, and I have multiple like artist series and with like painting and everything. I don't have that problem.
Okay.
So I have no advice on that. I'm so sorry.
All right. So today I'm choosing the art piece from your online gallery, and the art piece that I'm choosing to talk about with you is Craving Topo Chico. Can you share with us the story behind it from the original idea to getting it onto the canvas?
Yeah, absolutely. So this piece, the name, I'm always craving Topo Chico. My life goal is truly to get them to just sponsor me as an artist and just have Topo Chico sent to my apartment, to my studio all the time. Just, Topo Chico, if you're listening, I'll send this podcast to them later. Um, yeah, I mean, I was probably drinking Topo Chico while I made it, so that's why I chose the color palette. Um, but yeah, you're in the desert, you're thirsty. Um, for this style in general, I really, again, going back to like the idea of painting the way Hemingway writes, where I want to take like these ideas, concepts, or even scenes, right? So this is like not necessarily dealing with an idea or a concept, but more so just visually trying to boil a scene down in its simplest parts, and create a little bit of dynamism like within that. Um, I also I come from an advertising background. So I have a degree in journalism with an emphasis in advertising, and I owned like an advertising agency for a while that I started when I was 21. Um, and so I love advertising as a medium. I think it's fascinating. I decided to get my degree in advertising because at the time like journalism was being, consumed by Fox News and all these like unethical like news outlets that are lying to people every day. And I was like, I don't want to have to go into a field where I have to lie to people and or I have to like move the story or say like, oh, we've heard so that you can like put in opinions of the people above you to try and climb a corporate ladder. Like it just seemed very like unethical to me. And what I liked about advertising is like people know you're lying to them, first of all. Like they know that you're selling a product to them. They know, like, there is no, like, you're not lying to people about lying to them, if that makes sense. Right. So the style is very indicative of my history in advertising. And then especially like making merch, if that makes sense, for like different clients and like the offset printing. So I really love the idea. So when I have like those pieces where there's like line work, but it's a little bit off, it's because it's kind of like the idea of Plato in the cave
Okay.
of like perception versus reality, right? And it's always going to be a little bit off. It's never going to be the perfect, like that painting isn't going to be a perfect desert scene, and I don't want it to be. I want it to be like your perception of a desert scene, like in the same way that if someone would go into the desert and take psychedelics, right? Your perception is different than like reality, but in the same tone, even the way, even if you're not on drugs, how you perceive reality is through the lens of your eyeball being and your brain you know, translating light reflection that it's receiving through your eyeball to create what is quote unquote reality, right? So like truly you're never really experiencing reality, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like what that painting and then like the other ones that are similar to it are really speaking on is our own transmutation of reality and what is reality and how each person experiences reality is always going to be different. And it's never going to be like the perfect, again, like Plato in the cave, it's never going to be that ideal, right? Because we physically can't actually experience the ideal because there's no way to actually do that. Like a mantis shrimp sees like what 137 colors or something like that we don't perceive, right? My mind is fascinated as a painter, wanting to know what are those colors? Like it drives me insane. I'm like, I just want to know what the colors are. And like, but I'll never be able to see that. And then I look at things, I'm like, and I get like kind of like bitchy angry inside, right? I'm like, that's probably not even that color. Like a mantis shrimp would be able to see what the real color of that is. Like I don't even know what I'm painting right now because it's probably some weird shade of something that's not even like I can't see it, right? So yeah, that's kind of like the idea and thought process behind that piece. And then the craving Topo Chico is like you're in a desert, you're thirsty, and I am always craving Topo Chico.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy your gallery that I see on your online page, and that's one of them that really just stuck out to me. I mean, they all
Yeah.
do, but that's one that really caught my attention, the craving Topo Chico.
Yeah, yeah. It's also like an idea of like craving reality that you'll never get or be able to experience, right?
So
So,
now
yeah.
the next project that I wanted to explore with you is your acid vault, which I found to
Yeah.
be very interesting, and you're already sharing a bit of the the love that you put into this project. For the acid vault, can you walk us through some of the specific techniques, paints, and materials that you use to make this project come to life?
I can, yeah. So, for this project, so I was scared because I never painted anything very big before. This
It's
is the biggest
big.
painting I had ever done. And before that, the biggest painting I think I'd done was like 18 by 24 inches. And then I just go from 45 feet to 12 feet because like whatever. Um, so actually my I have a painting mentor. I love him. His name's Joe O'Neill. The official Joe O'Neill, I believe, is his tag on Instagram. And he used to do murals in the Bay Area for a living when he was younger, like, like commercial like murals. And he does set design now, and he's an amazing painter. He does a lot of sign painting, which to me still is just I have no idea. Um, So yeah, that whole process was me learning, especially like when I went to go start, I was like, can you please just come down and like help me start? Because like I'm scared. I was like, that drawing the line out of in your comfort zone and stepping out of it. I stepped out of it, but I was just like, I don't know. I need help. He came down and we hung out and we painted, for the first like weekend or whatever. And he got me started because, once it started, you have to finish it. So, um, and he was really great. So I'm used to painting smaller pieces, right? And I think a lot of artists, when you start, it seems less intimidating and it seems easier to paint smaller. So you have like your tiny little canvas and your tiny little brush, and it's not intimidating at all. And you're like, oh, it's small, whatever. And and so as I was painting, the wall, he would come up behind me and grab like a brush that truly was too small for the piece, because like, 12 feet tall, and I have a half-inch brush or something. And would come up behind me and grab the brush out of my hand and replace it with either a roller or a much bigger paintbrush. And I was like, what? And I would be like, what are you doing to me? And he's like, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. You're going to use this. And I'd be like, okay, like dragging and kicking me out of my comfort zone, even though I was like, please do it. Um, so that was all a learning process in general. And then once I got more comfortable, like after he left, and I was just left in this dark basement room by myself with, there was a restaurant upstairs that I was, doing it for. And so they would bring me food, like, the goblin in the basement, which truly I felt like a goblin in an underground cave, because I would come back up after like 8, 10 hours, and like, I'd get there really early in the morning or really late at night, and it'd be the next morning or whatever. Time was so irrelevant and did not matter. And I would come up and I would be like, it's daytime out here. I'm like, what happened? What time is it? And people would see this like covered in paint human being like crawling out of the stairwell, and they'd be enjoying their lunch and their beer in the sun. And then this painted creature comes from the deep, and I would just be like, can I have some more food? Just like, um, so yeah, and then I learned how to sculpt on that, and I called a friend. I have a really good friend. His name is Carlos Flores in LA. All my like art mentors are all in LA. I spend most of my time here in San Diego, but I go between San Diego and LA a lot. Um, and I was like, I need to make trees. What do I use? Where do I start? And he's like, okay, well, you need to get some foam. And I was like, okay. And so I just like, and then I like figured out, I kind of like made a little tool for myself and like figured out how to carve it. But like before that, right, I was like, well, I need to make these trees, right? And I had never made a landscape before. And the inspiration was the owner told me about his first acid trip, which he will never admit to. He's like, no, I wasn't on acid. I was on shrooms or something. But in confidence, he told me, now that we're making it, public, that it was his first acid trip, and he went in the woods and found a waterfall behind his college campus. And so that's what I was like, well, we'll just make that, no big deal. Well, let's just make that. I do this all the time to myself, where I'm like, yeah, it sounds easy. Let's just do it. And then I'm like, what did I do to myself? Like, which is truly my journey into anything. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I just have blinders on. I'm like, yeah, let's just go. And then I'm halfway through it and I'm like, I'm so tired. What did I agree to with myself to do? So anyways, I got foam and like I I was like, okay, well, I need to make trees. I was like, well, I need to go touch some trees. So when I would walk my dog around the neighborhood, I am sure people thought I was on lots of drugs. But I would go and I would like feel the bark of like different trees and like put my hands on it because I was gonna have to sculpt it. So I wanted to know what it would feel like and like what does like a tree bark like really feel like. And there's a bunch of these trees around my neighborhood that have like the real craggly like bark where as it grows it like rips itself apart and then the outer like bark sheds, right, which is amazing because you're kind of like exploding from the inside out, which I guess is maybe a euphemism for my own creativity, right? Um, so I would go around and like touch all the trees like a total weirdo. And then I would go back and I was like, okay, I know how to make it because I know how it should feel. So I taught myself how to sculpt with those trees, and like literally just touching trees, which was really fun and fascinating. A lot of ASMR involved, by the way, in like cutting the foam. I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I was like, just give me extra pieces of foam. I just want to cut it. Like as I'm slicing it is like, oh, truly the best. I made every manager that like dared walk past me. I'm like, come here and slice this foam like a crazy person. And they're like, okay, Aubree, whatever. And they did like, oh my God, so great. I'm like, right. And they're like, we have to step away. Um, there's like speaking of like the process of like creating that space, there was a lot of staring. Staring is a really big point in creating any art, I think. Just
Staring?
yeah,
Right.
just staring at what you're making and you're like, what the fuck do I do next? Like I catch other artists in that point of their work. I'm like, you're at the staring part, and they're like, yeah, I am. I'm like, yeah, it's cool, man. I think it's the most important part actually of like the creative process is like taking a moment to stop and just stare. Um, but yeah, so truly that whole space and creating that was really just me exploring the boundaries of like what I could do as like an artist, as a person, as a grieving daughter. And after that, I was like, I don't feel like there's anything I can't do. Like, truly, when I was like finished with it, I was like, I can do anything. And now I've like learned welding because I was like, well, I didn't know how to weld, right? So that was like a problem. And like, I had to have somebody else come in and weld. And I was like, well, now I have to learn how to weld because that way I know how to do this now. And so yeah, just the creative process on creating that was really fascinating and a lot of experimentation. And then also one important key part of it was the floor. So it was just this gross like cement floor and I scrubbed it and tried to like get all the stains off of it because it's a cement floor in a basement. Like it's gonna
And
be
and all by yourself, no help.
yeah, no, I
Scrubbing, I
was
mean, nobody helped. Even that, just scrubbing off the cement floor.
not really. Like they kind of got scared of me after a certain point of time. They were like, we're scared of the creature. We feed the creative creature. We will give her drinks. We give her water. We make sure she doesn't die. We drop off art supplies and we let creature do creature. Like it was just a very manic like process. Um, and but one point, a friend of mine came because I wanted to make these disco balls out of, it's like I'm a very like punk rock kid at heart and like my history like in high school and everything. And I wanted to make these, I had like one punk rock wall because if you do too much color everywhere, it gets a little much. So I had one wall that was a black on black mural. So it was like matte black and then glossy black on top of it, which was super fun and super fascinating. And then I had different lights that would like move, and then you could only see the mural once the light reflected it, which was awesome. And I wanted to make a disco ball that was out of like, the studs on like leather jackets. So
Mm.
I was making a disco ball out of the studs that I got, online that kids use for like leather jackets. And my friend was there helping me, and because he was helping, he's actually a sound engineer, he's helping me like put all the wires and stuff because it was also like a music venue. And And so I was sitting there, and then at some point, for some reason, like he hit something and the paint fell on the ground, like a paint bucket fell on the ground. And I was like, shit, how do you clean up paint from the floor? And I was like, oh man, like I don't know how I'm gonna do this. And there was still like these like kind of like stains from like the glue, and it was like this interesting like pattern that I had been trying to wipe up and clean and make smooth. And but then the paint like so he was like, I don't know, maybe just go get like a squeegee that like they clean the windows with and like try to squeegee it into like a dustpan or something. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then in that process of doing that, I looked at the floor and there was still this very thin layer of the paint that had gone over that pattern and it looked so cool. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna do this on the rest of the floor. So then I just took buckets of paint and I threw it all over the floor and then just started squeegeeing the color through. And it ended up being so cool. And that's how I came up with like the floor, which everyone like loved as soon as they walked in. They're like, oh my God, the floor is so cool. But it was really just like this manic moment of like, I don't know how to clean this, so I'm just gonna go with it. And that's how I did the whole floor. And then on my pieces, my crown, I have a series called Crowns and Skulls. And so I had to make kind of big. And you can't pull that on like canvas because it gets stuck on the little nooks and crannies on the canvas. And so I have to do it on wood. And so I started pulling the paint in the same way for the backgrounds on those that I did for the floor because it's just so much fun. So I have a whole series called Crowns and Skulls, which is like a reflection of death and dying and how you can't take materialism with you. And then like, what are you really doing on in life if that's your focus? But I use that technique that I discovered on the floor of Acid Vault to make those. So yeah, literally everything was just like an experimentation of what my limitations as an artist and a creative were, and it worked out. And my goal with that whole space was just to create a space for other creatives to do their work and their creative work. So there's a stage, I say two stages. One was the bar for I like to call them liquid artists rather than mixologists or bartenders because truly like it's an art form to make an amazing cocktail, which we did really well. And then there was a stage in the far end of the space that I built to look like you're standing. Did you watch Ferngully as a kid?
Bengali?
Yeah.
Never heard of
No? Oh my God, you
it.
have to watch Ferngully. Okay. Robin Williams is the voice actor for Batty. You have to watch it. Anyways, there's all these like cut trees and like they're on the tops of these cut trees. So I made the stage look like it was like the top of a cut tree so that it's like you're outside performing on a tree stump basically. So I did that and that's where like musicians would perform, dancers, I had drag artists in there. So I truly just wanted to test the limits of my own creativity to create a space for other creatives to do their work in. And that was kind of like the inspiration and the process for that.
Yes, I saw the pictures of the acid vault, and it's beautiful. It's really like going into stepping into either another country, another world. It's just its own realm, and I really enjoyed watching the pictures and just hearing you sharing about your like step by step sort of experimentation. Did you at any time have to go to see like DIY videos on YouTube, or were you just like, let's do it myself? Are you just did it yourself?
I just did it. Yeah, I just did it. And if I had questions, I know artists who did do that and I would just call them and be like, "Help me." I have a very big habit of asking people who are experts in their field about very simple questions that I could probably just Google. But yeah, I would just ask my friends who are other artists, and luckily my friends are very supportive and very knowledgeable, and they would be like, try, and they, like a lot of them will never say do this, they say try this,
Mm.
and they would give me ways or ideas to try things rather than step-by-step instructions to do them, which I think was very important in helping someone develop their own creative process.
You did talk about going outside, going on walks, feeling the trees,
Yeah.
and you did mention walking with a little buddy that you have.
Yeah.
Who is this little buddy that you have? Can you remind us?
Yeah, it's Barley. He's my little pup. Do you want to say hi to him? Barley, come here. I know, I'm waking you up. This is
Hel-
Barley.
Hello, Barley.
Yeah.
I
He is my best friend. I'm not really his best friend right now after I woke him up. Um, yeah, he actually was in the acid vault with me because he was like 8 weeks old, and he helped me like when I had to like redo some of it, because there was like some time in between because of COVID. Um, he was like 8 weeks old coming in with me, and he was painting like in my lap with me, and he's always been right next to me for every creative project I do. And he is like just he's like the best little dog. Like I never had a little dog before, and he's the best. Like he just chills with me. He's like I have an easel, and like these little like Urban Outfitter like cushions fit perfectly like right in this little square the base of the easel, and he lays right underneath there in the little cushion as I paint, and he'll just lay there for hours, and he knows if I'm painting he doesn't really bug me too much. He's like, oh, this is important time. Like he like really respects the process.
Yes.
It's like really funny. And while I was working on Acid Vault, like he loves balls. Like ball is life in our house. Just, it's a very big, important part of our life. Um, and I would kick the ball for him, and he would like drop it by my foot, and I would kick it, and then he'd go chase it. And then at one point, he picked up like a dry roller, like a dry paint roller, and he decided that was his next toy for fetch. And so he does that. And I had my painting stacked for a gallery show one time, and the neighbor's dog ended up like getting into my apartment. And she's like very rambunctious, like half husky, so she's all over the place. And Barley got in between her and my paintings
Mhm.
and started like he wasn't growling in like a mean way, but in like a warning. He's like, you have to get away from the paintings.
He
And
know
I was like, that's my dude. But yeah, that's my dog kid. The best.
Barley, right?
Barley, yes, Mr. Captain Barley.
Okay, something that I found interesting with what you were saying is that you walked with him and you're getting your inspiration, you're feeling the trees. But I'm bringing that because I saw little Captain Barley in a documentary very
Yes.
recently. And I noticed that in this documentary called Beer City San Diego, he pops out. He has a little cameo and he's doing the same thing that you're talking about. He's feeling the tree, he's feeling the plants. Um, it was just, it's beautiful seeing that you have this connection with your pet and you're able to bring him on your artistic projects. How does it feel for you as an artist to have a little pet that's so supportive and who's even willing to defend your art?
It's great. I love it. I love bringing him around. He makes it easy because he's a very good dog. And people love him. Like it is it like bringing him on a film project or to like the art gallery. I just recently had an exhibition, and he became the little shop dog. And every time I have a gallery opening, like he's there, and he is just like, first of all, he knows a ton of people. So he thinks that it's like a party for him, which is great because I'm actually pretty introverted, and I'm not like people probably think I'm like kind of rude because I'm a little standoffish, but he is the opposite of me. And so he's the I'll go first, and he'll go say hi to people, and then he's like a great icebreaker to talk to people about. Otherwise, I'll get into like really weird esoteric stuff. So it's like way easier for me to talk about a cute dog. So it's really helpful for me socially. Also, I have anxiety, and he's a trained service dog for my anxiety.
Hmm.
So that's like super helpful just to have him around, not only for, like a physical thing, um, but as an icebreaker and just people loving him in general. And he was also just really great on film to have as well.
So I've already mentioned the presence of little Captain your dog,
Barley.
Barley. We see his presence in the documentary, but can you share for the audience what this documentary is all about and how did you get involved in such an amazing project?
Yeah, so again, like I said, I was a creative director of a brewery called Amplified Aleworks for about 12 years. So I ended up getting to know and work with a bunch of people in the brewing industry, which is a very creative industry. And I think you watched it where I talk about how brewers are artists themselves. It's just a different medium of creating. Um, but yeah, so Beer City San Diego is an exploration in San Diego's history, but through the history of its beer. And I interview a lot of the different people who make up the San Diego brewing industry, and the culture behind it. And that's important because the San Diego beer culture has a very good like community vibe about it. And we kind of have the mantra of a rising tide lifts all boats. So your success is my success. Like we're all in it together and we're all working towards one goal. Like there's not a lot of competition. The only competition is making the best that we can make. And I like, in my 20s, you do like a lot of growing up, and I grew up a lot with that mantra and that ethos around me. And so I really wanted to showcase that, the artistry of it, the people who make it important, like make beer important as an art form. And then the love affair that the city has with beer, and then really being able to showcase like human history through the art form of beer, which I think is important, and I think we did. And we we are exploring avenues to do that with like different cities and talk about their history because beer is one of the oldest fermented products in the planet. And there's a lot of shared history of just like human history that relates back to the history of beer. So it's really fascinating once you kind of go on that like weird tangent trajectory to see it. But yeah, it was a really fun project to do, and I got started on it because our 5-year anniversary at Amplified actually was at a hotel here in San Diego, and just randomly, a person who was staying at the hotel was actually a producer in Hollywood, and he like snuck into our party. And like I'm always the police, right? I'm always like, these are the rules. Ended up going and talking to him, and I was like, hey man, did you buy a ticket? And he's like, no, I'm here for the IPA. And he like loved beer. Like he would just come down to San Diego just for the beer. And that was Wadsworth, who's the executive producer on it. And he's done a lot of different projects, from working at like Dig House Productions, which is like Jackass and stuff like that, to like different documentaries and reality TV, just like a bunch of different stuff. And I don't remember whose idea it was, but I think we were just spitballing one day. And because we ended up being friends over like beer, he loved to come down to San Diego and try out new beer. And I knew a bunch of breweries and brewers. And so I would just take him around. And I think we were just spitballing one day because he just really enjoyed like all his little private tours and getting to know everybody and to meet them, and was shocked at how nice and welcoming everyone was. And he's like, we should really document this because it's important. And so we just kind of started putting together a plan, and it took us about 3 years, and like during COVID. And so that made it a little bit harder. In the middle of it, I got Barley. And so we have some clips of him that we kind of put into some previous, we just kind of like nudged him in there, so that he's throughout all of it, because some of it was filmed before he was born. And then yeah, when I premiered it, um, I used barley as a drinking game. So whenever you see barley, you're supposed to take a sip of beer.
Oh.
And by the end of the film, you have very much enjoyed the film.
Okay,
So yeah, it was a really fun project.
so I feel like you're giving me and the audience a homework assignment by what you're
Yes.
saying. So we gotta where can we watch it first of all?
Well, it is on YouTube. You will have to share the link with your audience,
Okay.
because you have to have the link to be able to access it and to view it.
Okay, audience, I'll be sharing the link. So go and watch it, but have your favorite IPA handy.
You
And
might
what
need a couple.
a couple. And what is our next assignment? We have our IPAs and sip it when?
Whenever you see barley on screen.
Okay, so audience, you know your assignment. So
Yeah.
I'll be leaving that link in the show notes.
Yes. Perfect.
Now, for this part, I wanted to discuss one last project. Very important is that I saw very recently, I think within the last couple weeks, you were doing a live art project in the San Diego airport. Can you share with us what was it like having complete strangers watching you do your magic?
Yeah, so this past spring, I was accepted into the 2025 Performing Artists Residency at the San Diego Airport, which is very honored to have been accepted into that first and foremost. Um, and yeah, it's to have people watch you do live art. The first time I did it was just before COVID, and I did it with my painting mentor, and it's so stressful. He was cool, calm, and collected because he's like
Mm.
painted a million things on the planet. But yeah, to have people, especially a traveling audience who you know you're never gonna see again, and they're only gonna get so like I I am a performer in a sense of like I understand performance and I've performed before, whether it's acting or whatever, or just, in the film, but you're on film, so it's like retakes and stuff, not very much live stuff. But after owning a venue and working with music, you have to keep it entertaining the entire time. Like if you're a band and you're just sitting there playing your music and you're not moving around or you're not dancing, it's no matter how good your music is, it's gonna fall flat. So the same thing applies to live painting, and it's a little bit harder because you don't that importance of staring that I mentioned earlier, you don't have that luxury. You just have to go and you have to think of it from a performance aspect of what are they seeing. So like you might be like, oh my God, I need to get the shadow on this eye underneath the third lash perfect. And like you might like get caught up in details, but you have to let that go, which is gonna be really hard at first, but you have to remember you're getting people for 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes at a time, and you have to keep them engaged. So you have to really kind of move around your tactics and how you approach a painting, because how I approach a painting when I'm by myself or knowing that people are going to be watching me is totally different. So you have to make sure there's a lot of progress happening in a short amount of time, and you have to make sure that it's entertaining for them. And what was really what made it a little bit easier is that each piece is about 6 feet by 6 feet, and again, I'm 5 feet tall, right? So I have to move it around this canvas a lot. So I'm physically moving a lot, which makes it more entertaining as well. Um, and the bigger strokes you're doing, the more like bigger movements you're doing, which makes it more interesting for people to watch. Because otherwise, you're just watching paint dry, and that's not really fun for anyone. Um, so yeah, it was really interesting, and a lot of people are really into watching people paint live, which I actually didn't really think about until that moment. Like I always thought it was interesting, but I just thought I was kind of like a creative nerd about it. But even people who don't paint or are not particularly like creative in their own words, I believe everyone's creative. They just, feel like there's more rules than there are. Um, uh, yeah, they love watching it, which I think there should be more live painting out in the world in the same way that, bands perform music. I think you should perform your art. Like even if it's just painting a painting, like it was really fun. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, but just as long as you kind of take a different approach to it to know that you're not really painting for yourself, you're painting for an audience, which is just a very different, especially for me, somebody who paints to get my emotions out and kind of process those emotions in a very personal way. And then you take it and you're painting for an audience. It's just a very different approach.
Well, thank you for sharing your exploration of art and your projects. For this part, we're kind of landing the plane, asking some like closing questions. So you ready?
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
Okay. So my next question for you is, How do you see your artistic talent evolving in the future? And are there any ideas or concepts that you would just love to explore?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I really want to be able to take these realms that I'm painting on canvas and make them into more immersive art pieces like I did with Acid Vault. But I want to take, the paintings I have and the elements I have in the paintings and make those real for people and make them so that they can then become the subjects of the piece, the moving, living subjects of the artwork. And I'm just creating your background. I'm creating the stage you're walking around on. Um, that's a big goal for me is to make more immersive structural 3D pieces for people. And I really want that to evolve more. That takes a lot of money.
Yes.
um, it's very expensive to do, so I'm applying for a lot of grants. If there's anybody who wants to, throw some money at art, hit me up.
Yes.
To create just these different like immersive pieces. I really want it to be like I see art as like kind of a religion on its own. Like religion not in the sense of like an organized religion, but a way of like spirituality. And I really want to create like art so that people can experience more of their own internal spirituality, essentially, if that makes any sense. And then in a very small side note, my personal next goal is just to get somebody to let me paint an abstract piece on the bottom of their pool.
Okay.
Because I want to paint someone's pool. I don't know why. I'm just like, I really want to paint the bottom of your pool. So yeah,
That's
two.
awesome. Any upcoming artists out there who you suggest we keep an eye out for?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, yes. One of my favorite like newer living artists is actually a crochet artist. And I have to look up her name really fast. Yeah, an artist I love is I believe she's in the UK. Her name is Kate Jenkins, and she's a crochet artist. And she like her exhibit that caught my attention, her gallery exhibit that she did was all like seafood. And she did her entire gallery set up like a seafood market, but everything was crocheted. So like how like when there's like fish laid out and they have like the little like decorative green lettuce, like she crocheted like that even. And so again, like I just love this idea of like creating like little immersive worlds with art. And I feel like she also did that, but through like soft sculpture, which my mind was blown. I was like, hey, there's just so much. You can just look at that and be like, there is so much work done. I'm like, what are you using? Like, I hope you're getting all the hand massages like every day. Like, someone has to be massaging your hands because, like, just I don't crochet at all. I'm very bad at like stereotypical gender roles and yeah, sewing, crocheting, knitting, all that is very beyond me. But her work is like fascinating and probably because I have no idea how to do it also, which I love. So it keeps the magic there for me. Yeah, I love her work. Check her out on Instagram. Kate Jenkins. Um, her Instagram handle is KJ Cardigan. So definitely follow her and look her up. She's great.
Okay, well, thank you so much for Tiny Nightmare, Aubree Miller, for
Yeah.
sharing all of your creative experiences, your growth, your evolution. Now comes the final question, which I ask all of my guests, and that is, Aubree, why is creativity important for you?
Creativity is important to me because I don't know how to live without it. It gives me meaning. There is a philosophy called absurdism, and it is about creating meaning in life, um, to have meaning in life, essentially. The idea is that there is not inherently meaning in life, you have to create it. And I create my meaning for life and for living through creativity. So
Well,
it keeps me alive.
thank you so much. And where can people find more of your work online?
Yeah, so basically everything is Tiny Nightmare or Art by Tiny Nightmare on the internet. On Instagram, it's Art by Tiny Nightmare. On Threads, it's also Art by Tiny Nightmare. And my personal Instagram is just Tiny Nightmare. My web store, which I like to call my online gift shop, is I recently moved it from an Etsy page over to a Big Cartel page. You can find it through my website, which is artbytinynightmare.com, or you can go to tinynightmare.bigcartel.com to find my online gift shop, which has a bunch of my artwork, a bunch of like my pieces I've digitized and then put on like little gift shop items and stuff like that. So I like to make art functional and usable in the real world.
Well, thank you so much, Tiny Nightmare, Aubree Miller, for being here on this podcast, Creativity Worth Expressing. And for those in the audience, go ahead and check out the show notes where I'll be leaving the links dropped by our guests today. So if you missed it, don't worry, it'll be there in the show notes. And again, Aubree, thank you so much for being a guest on Creativity Worth Expressing.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. It was really great to have a conversation with you. It was wonderful meeting you.